Okay, number 10, write an equation of the line passing through the point negative 2, 4 that is parallel to the line y equals 5x minus 7. So I'm just going to start by putting the point at negative 2, 4. And I'm going to graph the line y equals 5x minus 7. Remember slope-intercept form? In this line, the y-intercept is negative 7. And the slope is 5, or as a fraction, 5 over 1. So if I graph the y-intercept, negative 7, just be slightly off this graph, and then I apply the slope of 5, that would mean go up 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and right 1. And apply that slope one more time, up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right 1. Okay, this would be the line y equals 5x minus 7. Okay, and so what we're asked to do is write an equation of the line that passes through this point, negative 2, 4, that's parallel to this line. So what we should know about parallel lines is that parallel lines have the same slope. So if the slope of this line was 5, the slope of a parallel line would also be 5. Okay, and then we're given a point that it passes through. So this is a slope. We also know that it passes through the point negative 2, 4. And so I'm going to use, since I have a point and a slope, I'm going to be using point-slope form. Point-slope form is y minus y1 equals the slope times x minus x1. And so in this point, that's x1 and y1. So it's y minus this y coordinate equals the slope times x minus this x coordinate. And then whenever you have a negative and a negative, subtract a negative, that's like subtraction is like adding the opposite. So subtracting negative 2 is like adding 2. Okay, so this is point-slope form. And then to write the equation in slope-intercept form, I'm just going to use the distributive property. 5 times the quantity x plus 2, so 5 times x plus 5 times 2. Okay, and the last step to get slope-intercept form would just be add 4 to both sides. I'm going to add 4 here and here. So in slope-intercept form, the equation would be y equals 5x plus 14. So I'm not going to be able to graph it. The y-intercept of 14 just comes up too high up here. But the line would be parallel to this line here. Okay, number 11, write an equation of a line passing through the point 6, 1 that is perpendicular to the line 3x plus y equals 9. So I do know that perpendicular lines have slopes that are opposite reciprocals. Opposite reciprocal slopes. In other words, if you multiply the slopes, the product is negative 1. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to solve for y in the original equation. I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides. When you move it from one side to the other, it changes sign. Okay, so this is the same as y equals 3x, or this is the same as 3x plus y equals 9. Same equation. Okay, and you can see this equation has a slope of negative 3. And so to be perpendicular to a line with a slope of negative 3, you would need the opposite reciprocal slope. So for the perpendicular line, opposite of a negative is a positive. The reciprocal of 3 is 1/3. So the slope of a perpendicular line would be 1/3. If I multiplied 1/3 and -3, I would get -1. The product of the slopes of perpendicular lines is always -1. Okay, I also know that it needs to pass through the point 6, 1. And so again, we have a slope and a point. So I'm going to start with point slope form. So it's going to be y minus y1 equals the slope times x minus x1. This is point slope form. Okay, the y coordinate is 1, so it's y minus 1. The slope is 1/3. The x coordinate is 6, so it's x minus 6. Okay, I'm going to distribute the 1/3 to both sides, or to everything in parentheses. So it should say y minus 1 equals 1/3 times x is 1/3 x. 1/3 times -6 is -2. Okay, next I'm going to add 1 to both sides. If I add 1 to -2, -2 plus 1 is -1. So I added 1 here. The -1 and +1 canceled. -2 plus 1 is -1. So this is the equation in slope-intercept form. If I graphed it, the y-intercept's at -1. The slope is 1/3. So this line is perpendicular to the previous line. I could show that by graphing this. To graph an equation, I could graph it. The y-intercept's up at 9, so it's going to be a little higher than I would like. So 7 would be approximately right here, maybe 8 and 9. So the y-intercept's up at 9. The slope's -3, meaning if you go down 1, 2, 3 and right 1, down 3, right 1, these lines would be perpendicular, meaning they cross at 90-degree angles.